And now 30 at 6, welcome to Dave Warnick. Dave, welcome to 30 at 6. Town Commissioner Rising Sun going to tell us about an exciting new project, long time in the works, Rails to
Thanks
Trails.
for having me here. So I'm excited about this. This is a great opportunity for the town to grow economic development. We've been working a number of years to try and get the town in a position where we can start to bring back the economy of the downtown area, and we feel that the Rails to Trails is going to be an important part of that economic redevelopment of the town of Rising Sun. Plus, it's a great amenity for people to use. It's it's good for health and exercise, but also just recreational use, and it'll even serve some communities to allow them to have an easy transportation network to get from where they live into the downtown area near Martins and that area of town. So it's about a 3.6 mile trail that we're looking to complete, and so as we get moving on that,
and that'll be great.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Yep. So for some of our viewers that don't know, the Rails to Trails concept involves basically what?
So there's a number of different organizations, but one of the most prominent ones is the Rails to Trails Conservatory. And so back in the, I want to say 70s and 80s, there were a lot of different, and even been as early as the 60s, there were different legislation passed that allowed for abandoned or really inactive railroad beds to be converted into basically a walking and bicycling and like a non-motorized trail. So there's federal programs and state programs, and most of the trails, so the trail we're looking at would be a non-motorized trail because that's the funding mechanisms and such that we're looking at would provide for that. Motorized trails are a lot harder to get built, and I don't think we'd want to build a motorized trail. You'd have four-wheelers running up and down the trail through town, so it's probably not the best thing.
Go all over the place now anyway.
So there's plenty of farmland around for that, but the non-motorized trails, there's a few good examples in Maryland. There's the NCRR, which is now the Torrey Brown Trail in Baltimore County.
Right.
That's about 20 miles in Maryland, and then it extends about another 26 miles from the Maryland line up into York, Pennsylvania.
Well, how long will Rising Sun's trail be?
So the section in Maryland right now that we've acquired, we've acquired part of it, and we're in the process of acquiring the rest of it from the county, is about 3.6 miles. So,
starting from where to where?
So the section that we're looking to complete is, so if we look here on the map, so from Jacob Tone Memorial Highway, if you follow the train tracks up, it goes across Queen Street here by the old railroad station, and then across Main Street, right there in front of like near Martins, and then it would continue on up across Stevens Road and up to the Pennsylvania state line. So it's about 3.6 miles in Maryland, and then the potential exists that it could continue up into Oxford about another 5 miles.
Well, that's great. So anybody could living close to that trail could get on their bike and go shopping.
Yeah, and not only that, there's a lot of benefits from Rails to Trails beyond just economic development and such, and exercise and things. There's one of the things that actually tends to happen along Rails to Trails is property values within a quarter mile of a Rails to Trails project typically increase by about 15%.
Wow. So
there's a lot of benefits to having that nearby. Crime is lower on a Rails to Trails than an abandoned rail line. So there's any number of benefits. Most people that oppose Rails to Trails once it's in typically kind of change their mind on it. So it's there's been a lot of support in the community. Obviously, there's a couple people that are skeptical of the idea, but I believe we'll win them over with time.
Well, you bike and I bike, and that's pretty much unanimous. Bikers are good people.
Yeah.
Right? So people have concerns about strangers going through their backyard on their bicycles, but that statistic you just quoted disputes that.
Yeah, so there's plenty of data out there on that. Rails to Trails Conservatory gathers a lot of it, and but there's also a lot of it's been gathered by different government agencies, both local governments and state governments. And the predominant amount of data indicates that Rails to Trails, particularly in rural areas, is a net positive by a long shot to the community. There's actually an organization called Trail Towns that the whole purpose of the organization is to help rural communities develop trails along old railroad corridors with the idea that they serve as great economic development engines for the towns. So one of the class examples is the Allegheny Passage out in, or the Great Allegheny Passage out in western Maryland it goes up into Pennsylvania towards Pittsburgh. So.
Well, I know from experience, I've ridden a lot of them, and they're a lot of fun, and often you see a little restaurant or ice cream stand along there. Yeah,
so there's actually a trail up in Hershey that, I can't think of the name of it for the life of me, but it's as you're going up 743 into Hershey, and bike shops are notoriously difficult to keep in business. They're low margin, low volume. It's just everything bad about running a business is typically in a bike shop, right? So you tend to find them around college towns, urban areas where you have large populations. It takes things like that to keep them. Well, you very rarely find a bike shop in a rural community. And so on that trail up on 743, there's actually a bike shop. It's actually called the Rails to Trails Bike Shop, I believe. And that bike shop has been there for years, and it seems to be growing. But the key thing about it is it's right along a rail trail. So you're literally locating your business right next to where your customers are. And another good example is in Moncton. There's it's like a restaurant. It's like a little sandwich shop. They have ice cream, bicycle rentals, things like that. And they've been there for, well over 20 years now. And that area of Moncton really didn't have anything going on until that trail went through.
Well, one day Rising Sun will get there. I'm glad we're getting started. Yeah. There's challenges. I know. Are there rails to pull up? There's a mound that I read about in the paper.
There are some sections of rails. We'll try and leave the rails down in as many places as we can. If you go to the NCRR trail, most of the rails are still there actually, and it kind of adds to the character. It's neat when you're riding along and you see the rails next to you. In some places, we can utilize the rails to kind of hold the stone in place.
Right.
So there's some advantages to keeping the rails in place for that. In some places, due to damage to the rails or some grading we're going to have to do to try and make it compatible with the existing grade crossings for the roads, things like that. There's some rails that'll have to come out.
This mound that I read about.
Well, so the section between Main Street and Biggs Memorial Highway was unfortunately filled in about 30 feet deep or so. And one of the other things that kind of goes with that, and we actually now own that piece of land, and there's a lot of back and forth on that, but at this point we're just going to take care of it. We know we're going to have to remove a fairly significant amount of dirt from there to lower it back down to the original grade. We can utilize the dirt in other places, so it's not just a waste. I mean, we actually have needs for that dirt, so we're fortunate in that regards. We have a water line that runs through there somewhere. We're not exactly sure how deep it is, but there is some concern, if we ever had to service that water line, it may be buried so deep right now we couldn't get to it. By being able to go in there and lower it back down so that we're maybe a few feet above that water line, that would be, an ideal way to kind of allow us to be able to more easily maintain our water system too. So
let's take care of two projects at once.
Exactly. So it's all things like that. And I always try and look for areas where we can kind of get two things done at once, like some kind of a synergy in our projects.
How can our viewers help? Volunteers?
So we're going to need a lot of volunteers. I actually have one gentleman that's been helping me quite a bit, and we've had a lot of Eagle Scout projects on parks. So in Veterans Community Park, we've actually built a trail system already in that park. Those volunteer hours actually become really important for the town of Rising Sun when it comes to funding. There's a lot of federal funds out there that will pay 80%. So somehow we have to come up with the other 20%. Well, the town of Rising Sun, realistically, from a tax-based standpoint, it's not really that practical for us to come up with 20%. But there's state mechanisms, there's private mechanisms. So we're working with some private partnerships to get portions of it done. We can also use volunteer hours as in-kind contributions, so we don't have to necessarily come up with 20% in cash.
Well, I, for one, can't wait, Dave. Yeah. Thank you very much. If somebody wants to volunteer, call Town Hall.
They can call Town Hall. They can also reach out to me directly. It's Commissioner Warnick at risingsunmd.org, and it's W-A-R-N-I-C-K. So, and also if you go on the town's website at risingsunmd.org and go under Commissioners, you'll find all my contact information.
Hey, let's get rolling.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I can't wait.